Whenever you're going to ask only a few members of the population instead of everyone, you need to have a strategy on how to pick how you're going to sample. So continuing on with some of the fill in the words on the sheet, we're going to look at the sampling techniques section. A convenient sample selects individuals that are easy to get to. This sample is usually not representative of the population. Now, a convenient sample is where you kind of just ask whoever it's convenient to ask. So instead of having a very structured, truly random study of any kind, you just ask maybe the first people you see, or the people that are around you. And even though I'm using people in most of my examples, remember you can do a sample with things other than people. You could sample, for example, trees. How do I select trees to study in a forest? I could walk up to the first tree I find. That would be a convenient sample, whereas some of the other ones you might have to be a little more structured on how you choose your trees. Next one, voluntary sample, allows the individuals to self-select or volunteer, and often individuals who participate differ from those who don't, making the sample not representative of the population. Voluntary sample would be like a call-in survey to a radio show. It's people who choose to give their information, to fill out the survey, to answer the question. Now, the problem with both convenience and voluntary surveys is that it's not specific about getting a good cross-section, a good random sampling of all people that you might be interested in knowing something about. Convenient sample means that you're probably going to only run into the people that you are around, whereas a voluntary sample means that people that have the strongest opinions or maybe the most outgoing about giving their opinion are going to be the ones who are represented. And those people who are somewhat indifferent or don't really care or maybe who are really busy are not going to be represented in their survey because they didn't take the time to volunteer. Moving on, a cluster sample selects individuals from predetermined groups such as a classroom or a team. It means like a single classroom could be a cluster if you were studying the school, for example. It's only represented when the groups are heterogeneous, which is a big word for just saying they're well mixed. If groups are all different in some specific way, some meaningful way, the sample is not representative of the whole population. Now, when you have a set of groups that make up a larger group, so for example classrooms in a school, you could treat each of those smaller units, smaller groups, as a cluster. And then you could pick a single cluster at a time and just ask all of those people instead of asking a few people from each classroom. The problem can be with cluster samples is that often the way that people are mixed has some specific reason behind it. For example, when you think of classrooms, a lot of times people are specifically sorted into those classrooms based on their interests or their ability in a certain subject area. For example, there might be a classroom for calculus, and there are many students who choose not to pursue calculus for a handful of reasons, and the people in that classroom are going to probably have different opinions about certain things, particularly certain academic things, than other classrooms. So you need to be careful with cluster samples. Next one is a systematic sample, and it uses a rule to determine which individuals to select. This sample is usually representative of the population. Now we're starting to get into some of the better techniques. A systematic sample here, when it says it uses a rule, basically what it does most of the time is it counts every, let's say, 7th person that walks by, or every 12th person that signs up on the sheet, or something like that. It's some predetermined rule that keeps track of every so many people it's going to pick. And the reason that that is usually representative is because people ahead of time don't know specifically what the rule is. They just kind of sign up or show up in whatever order they do, and this systematic rule effectively picks out those people randomly from the group. So instead of a convenient sample where it's people that probably are more similar to you because they're around you, or a voluntary sample where the louder or more willing to volunteer their information people will have their opinion heard. Systematic sample chooses people pretty much based on the number of when they came in. Next one is a simple random sample, often called a SRS. This uses random selection to choose individuals from the sample. The key to a simple random sample is that everyone has an equal chance of being selected, and it's considered representative of the whole population. SRS is kind of the gold standard of statistics. Whenever we think of most of the formulas or what makes a lot of the techniques work, it's usually because we're dealing with a simple random sample. The easiest way to explain this is drawing names from a hat, and we'll get into more of the SRS stuff later. But for now, a simple random sample is where everyone has an equal chance of being picked. Next one, a stratified random sample, first breaks individuals into categories that we call strata. Within each of these categories, any given individual has an equal chance of being selected. When the results are correctly weighted, it's considered a representative sample of the population. Now, this might sound a little complicated, but imagine you have a school with freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. If you were to break them first into freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, and then did a SRS, or name drawing from a hat, within each of those categories, within each of those classes, that would be a stratified random. It guarantees that you're going to have people from every one of your categories. So in the case of a school where they're all fairly large categories, that might not be as helpful. But if you have any type of group that's underrepresented, there's not very many of them, that would be a good time to do a stratified random sample because it would guarantee you at least get some representation from each of those groups. And then finally, a multi-stage sample uses a combination of the representative techniques above. So the good techniques above can be combined in a variety of ways to do a multi-stage sample.